The hardest workers in any system are the ones being played. Right now, someone wakes at 5 a.m. to prove their dedication. They optimize calendars, track habits, post their journey online. This performance will save them, they believe. Visibility equals value, they assume. They're wrong. The people who actually run things have mastered something that looks like laziness to untrained eyes. They've discovered the art of doing nothing, and this apparent inaction gives them everything. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago when he wrote about power's true mechanics. So did Montaigne when he locked himself in a tower and changed Western thought forever. This understanding separates those who serve from those who rule. Tonight, you'll learn what they spent 500 years trying to hide. The art of doing nothing delivers victory to those brave enough to stop playing by their rules. Welcome to the real game. Your exhaustion serves someone else's empire. The system telling you to hustle harder, optimize every hour, prove your worth through constant motion. That system needs you tired. Tired people don't question. They don't build alternatives. They run on someone else's treadmill without realizing the wheel turns for another's benefit. Walk into any corporate office at 6 p.m. You'll see the ones who stayed late, responding to emails that could wait, attending meetings, accomplishing nothing. These people believe visibility proves value. They've confused motion with progress, and that confusion makes them perfect servants. The productivity industrial complex built an empire on your anxiety. Every app promising efficiency, every course teaching optimization, every guru selling morning routines. They profit when you believe you're inadequate. Hustle culture spread like a virus because it serves power. When you're grinding, you're not thinking. When you're exhausted, you're not building anything threatening existing order. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince about how leaders maintain control. One principle echoes across centuries. Keep your subjects busy. Busy people don't conspire. They don't organize. They collapse into bed each night, too drained to imagine different possibilities. Your constant motion serves everyone except you. The ones actually holding power don't post 5 a.m. workout videos. Jeff Bezos doesn't document productivity hacks on LinkedIn. Real players move in silence because they understand what Machiavelli knew. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Visibility theater belongs to the desperate. Silence belongs to the strategic. Consider who benefits when you're always proving yourself, defending your worth, demonstrating your hustle. Your employer extracts maximum value from your exhaustion. Your competition watches you burn resources on performance while they position invisibly. The entire apparatus of modern work culture needs you performing, explaining, justifying your existence through constant activity. The game you're playing was designed for you to lose. Those who control the board never look like they're playing at all. This raises the uncomfortable question you've been avoiding. If the hardest workers serve while the invisible ones rule, what does that make your hustle? The answer transforms everything once you accept it. Your grinding isn't the path to power. Your grinding is the mechanism of your exploitation. The 48 laws of power teach this repeatedly. Visibility without strategy becomes vulnerability. Motion without purpose becomes servitude. Machiavelli knew this. The question is whether you're ready to know it, too. Machiavelli wrote The Prince as a guidebook to power, and everyone misreads it. They see ruthless action, constant scheming, perpetual manipulation. They miss the deeper lesson embedded in his most famous work. Power belongs to those who know when not to act. Chapter 18 contains the key. Machiavelli tells you to imitate both the fox and the lion. The lion represents force, visible strength, direct confrontation. Every amateur focuses here because obvious power feels satisfying. The fox changes everything. This animal survives through cunning, through strategic stillness, through knowing when silence accomplishes more than roaring. The fox watches while others exhaust themselves. It waits while competitors reveal positions. When the fox finally moves, that single action carries the weight of patient observation. This mirrors what Machiavelli called virtù, and most people completely misunderstand this concept. They think it means constant action, aggressive maneuvering, endless strategic plays. Virtù actually means knowing exactly when to act and when to preserve resources. Consider his phrase from the Prince: "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception." Most readers focus on deception and imagine elaborate schemes. The real insight hides in plain sight. Winning without force means winning through strategic non-action, through letting opponents underestimate you, through appearing less dangerous than you are. Your apparent laziness becomes their blind spot. This represents Machiavellian psychology at its finest. The understanding that perception shapes reality more than reality shapes perception. Your competitors can see your outputs. They observe your results. They cannot see your inputs, the thinking, planning, and strategic positioning happening in protected privacy. When you master this principle from dark philosophy, you control what others perceive while hiding what actually gives you advantage. The art of doing nothing becomes your weapon because they measure themselves against your visible activity, never realizing your real work happens where they cannot observe it. Montaigne understood this from a different angle entirely. In 1571, Michel de Montaigne did something that baffled his contemporaries. At 38, successful in public life and positioned for greater influence, he retired. He retreated to his family estate, locked himself in a library tower, and proceeded to do what everyone considered nothing. His friends thought he'd lost his mind. His rivals celebrated his exit from public affairs. The ambitious young men of France dismissed him as finished, washed up, irrelevant. They were measuring success by the wrong metrics entirely. Montaigne understood what Machiavelli knew about power and combined it with something deeper: the recognition that your greatest competitive advantage comes from self-possession. He wrote that we must reserve a back shop, all our own, entirely free, in which to establish our real liberty. This wasn't philosophical abstraction. This was strategic doctrine. The tower became his fortress. While everyone else played the visible game of court politics and public performance, Montaigne built something his competitors couldn't touch: his protected space, his thinking time. His genuine work happened where others couldn't observe, measure, or interfere. They saw his physical retreat and assumed defeat. He was positioning himself beyond their entire game. Think about the strategic implications. Your competitors see your public presence. They benchmark themselves against your visible outputs. When you create a protected space like Montaigne's tower, psychological if not physical, your real work becomes invisible to them. They're shadowboxing with your public persona while you're building actual capacity and privacy. This principle from essentialism teaches that less but better beats more but scattered. Montaigne exemplified this before anyone coined the term. By retreating from the thousand demands of public life, Montaigne concentrated resources on the one thing that mattered: developing ideas that would outlive everyone in his generation. 500 years later, people still read the essays. His contemporaries who stayed busy in public life. History forgot their names. Montaigne wrote that the greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Read that carefully. Belong to yourself, not to your employer, your industry, your audience, or your critics. This self-possession makes you unmanipulatable. When you don't need external validation, When you've built your tower and populated it with your own values and judgments, others lose their leverage over you. The integration of these two masters reveals the complete strategy. Machiavelli teaches outward positioning, the fox's patience, the strategic restraint, the careful control of perception. Montaigne teaches inward mastery, the tower's protection, the self-possession, the genuine independence from external measurement. Together, these create unbeatable positioning. You're the fox in public, patient, strategic, invisible, until the decisive moment. You're the tower in private, protected, independent, building capacity they cannot touch. While everyone else exhausts themselves on visible performance, you're positioned where it matters, doing work that compounds, belonging to yourself rather than their system. This combination terrifies structures built on your dependence. They need you needing them, needing approval, opportunities, validation. The moment you stop needing what they're selling, their leverage disappears. You can walk away from situations that don't serve you. That option, that freedom, that autonomy, this represents real power. Everything else is theater. If you're starting to see how the game actually works, how visibility theater keeps you exploited, and how strategic withdrawal builds real power, subscribe now. More coming. Machiavelli devoted chapter 25 of The Prince to Fortuna, and most readers completely misunderstand what he taught. He compared fortune to a violent river that floods the countryside when nothing stands in its way, yet can be controlled when proper preparations exist. This metaphor contains everything you need to know about strategic power. The hustlers drown fighting the current. They see every market shift, every industry change, every unexpected development as something to combat directly. They're exhausting themselves trying to swim upstream, and when fortune shifts dramatically, as it inevitably does, they have no reserves left. They collapse. Watch what happens during economic downturns or industry disruptions. The constantly grinding types panic immediately. They've overextended themselves, spent energy reserves, positioned themselves with no flexibility. The market crashes or their industry transforms, and they're finished because they built everything on constant motion rather than strategic positioning. Meanwhile, the person who understood Machiavelli's lesson about Fortuna. They prepared during calm periods. They built reserves. They maintained flexibility. When the river floods, they're not fighting the current desperately. They either ride it, or they're already positioned on high ground. This difference separates survival from destruction. Machiavelli made a specific claim that most people ignore. Fortune controls approximately half of our actions, leaving the other half to our abilities and decisions. Think about what this means strategically. 50% of outcomes remain beyond your control, regardless of effort, planning, or intelligence. The other 50% responds to your input. Your competitors waste enormous energy trying to control the uncontrollable half. They're building elaborate plans that account for every variable, trying to force certainty into inherently uncertain situations. This leaves them exhausted and brittle. When the uncontrollable 50% moves, and it always does, their entire structure collapses because they built on the assumption of total control. You've made a different calculation. You've accepted that half the game stays beyond your reach. This acceptance liberates your strategic capacity. Instead of spreading resources across 100 variables you cannot influence, you've concentrated everything into the 50% you can actually control. Your positioning becomes unshakable because you've only built where solid ground exists. Consider the principle of strategic non-resistance. The river metaphor reveals something crucial about power dynamics. When fortune moves against you with overwhelming force, direct resistance accomplishes nothing except your own destruction. The strategic mind recognizes when to yield, when to redirect, when to wait for fortune to shift again. This connects to what the 48 Laws of Power calls the surrender tactic. Giving ground strategically looks like weakness to amateurs. They see any retreat as defeat. The sophisticated understand that yielding, when circumstances demand it, preserves your resources for the moment when circumstances favor you again. Fortune changes. The question becomes whether you survive to exploit that change, or whether you destroyed yourself fighting inevitable forces. Think about the people who insist on fighting every battle, who see any strategic retreat as cowardice, who confuse stubbornness with strength. These people exhaust themselves. They win small victories at enormous cost and lose the war because they're too depleted to continue. The art of doing nothing becomes most powerful when fortune moves against you. Everyone expects you to panic, to flail, to do something visible demonstrating you're still in control. The strategic response: do nothing that weakens your position further. Preserve resources. Wait. Observe. Let fortune exhaust itself against those who insist on constant combat. Your competitors interpret this stillness as paralysis or weakness. They're wrong. You're distinguishing between their game and reality. Their game demands constant visible response to every development. Reality rewards those who know when response depletes more than it gains. While they're exhausting themselves with reactive motion, you're positioned and waiting for the river to change course. This requires unusual discipline. Every instinct screams at you to act, to do something, to prove you're still relevant. Your ego demands visible combat. Your anxiety insists that inaction equals death. The Machiavellian mind recognizes these impulses as traps. Strategic stillness in the face of fortune's movement requires more strength than reactive motion. When fortune finally shifts, as Machiavelli knew it would, you strike with concentrated force, while everyone else is still recovering from their desperate reactions to the previous shift. They exhausted themselves fighting the flood. You preserved everything for the moment when the water recedes and the landscape can be reshaped. This patience, this acceptance of what you cannot control, this concentration on what you can influence, this separates those who survive fortune from those who get destroyed by it. Machiavelli wrote something in chapter 18 that most people read without understanding its full implications. Men judge by the eye rather than by the hand. This single observation contains the entire architecture of strategic positioning. What people perceive matters more than what actually exists. Your visible activity, your public performance, your apparent effort, these create the narrative others use to categorize and dismiss you. Meanwhile, your actual capabilities, your real preparations, your genuine positioning remain invisible unless you choose to reveal them. The hustle culture epidemic reveals this principle perfectly. Watch social media entrepreneurs document their 5 a.m. routines, their grind, their sacrifice. They're performing industriousness for an audience. What does this performance signal? Insecurity, desperation, need for external validation. These signals mark them as weak to anyone who understands power dynamics. Compare this to genuine power players. You don't see Warren Buffett posting his morning routine. Actual strategic operators don't document their process because they understand Machiavellian psychology. Explanation looks like justification. Justification signals that you need approval. Needing approval means others can manipulate you through that need. The strategic approach reverses everything. You control what others perceive without explaining anything. You show enough competence to avoid being dismissed as irrelevant. You demonstrate sufficient capability that they take you seriously. Beyond that, Silence. Mystery. Let them wonder how you're producing results without the visible grinding they consider necessary. This apparent effortlessness creates a specific psychological effect in competitors. They cannot benchmark themselves against what they cannot measure. Your visible inputs don't match your outputs, which means their entire framework for understanding success breaks down. Some will assume you're lucky. Others will decide you're naturally gifted. The perceptive few will realize you're doing something they don't understand, but by then, you're already positioned beyond their reach. Strategic underestimation becomes your weapon. When people think you're less capable, less dangerous, less strategic than you actually are, they give you room to maneuver. They don't watch you as carefully. They don't counter your moves as aggressively. They leave openings they would close if they understood your real capacity. The person who constantly proves themselves, who demonstrates their capabilities fully, who shows exactly how effective they can be, that person teaches their competitors exactly how to counter them. You're giving away intelligence for free, and intelligence always favors whoever has it without the other side knowing. This connects to avoiding unnecessary battles entirely. Every argument drains you. Every debate pulls focus. Every defense reveals what matters to you and hands your competitors a weapon. The person who fights every battle exhausts themselves, winning irrelevant conflicts while losing the war that actually matters. Machiavelli wrote in chapter 14 about knowing when not to fight. Most people read The Prince and see only sections about conquest and combat. They miss the deeper lesson threaded throughout. The strategic mind distinguishes between battles that advance position and battles that merely consume resources. Think about your last month. How many conflicts absorbed your energy? How many arguments demanded your attention? How many defenses did you mount against criticism? Now ask yourself, which of these advanced your actual position, and which simply drained you while accomplishing nothing? Most battles fall into the second category. Someone criticizes your approach. Your ego demands response. You engage, defend, explain. 2 hours later, you've proven nothing except that their opinion matters enough to you that you'll fight about it. They extracted your time and energy for free. You gained nothing except temporary satisfaction of having defended yourself against an attack that would have faded into irrelevance without your response. Your competitors understand this dynamic. The sophisticated ones will provoke you deliberately, knowing your response costs you more than them. They throw out criticism, challenges, provocations, not because they care about specific issues, but because your engagement depletes you. While you're defending yourself, they're positioning. While you're proving your worth, they're advancing their interests. The strategic response. Don't show up to fights that don't matter. Let them criticize. Let them question. Let them provoke. Silence. They're shadowboxing with an opponent who isn't there. Every punch they throw costs them energy, while you preserve yours for moments that actually determine outcomes. Montaigne observed that there's no conversation more boring than one where everybody agrees. People crave conflict, debate, the friction of competing ideas. This craving makes them exploitable. They'll engage in pointless arguments because the engagement itself feels meaningful. You've recognized that most engagement wastes more than it produces. 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, will the argument you're having right now matter? If the answer is no, why are you having it? That's time you could spend thinking, positioning, building actual advantage. That's energy you could preserve for moments when combat becomes necessary. The sophisticated operator maintains a simple filter. Engage only when the outcome materially affects your position. Everything else? Let them exhaust themselves talking while you advance silently. When they finally look up from their arguments to see where everyone stands, you're already 3 moves ahead because you weren't wasting time, proving yourself in irrelevant conflicts. This combination, controlling perception while avoiding unnecessary engagement, creates the appearance of effortless success. You seem to win without trying because they never see you trying. Your actual work happens in protected spaces they cannot observe. Your real battles occur in domains they don't recognize as battlegrounds. By the time they realize you've been competing, you've already won. Strategy doesn't emerge from motion. Clarity doesn't arrive during chaos. The insight that changes everything comes when you stop performing long enough to actually think. This reality threatens every system built on keeping you busy. Watch where actual strategic work occurs. Warren Buffett spends 80% of his time reading and thinking. Bill Gates takes dedicated think weeks with 0 distractions. Einstein's thought experiments, the mental exercises that led to revolutionary physics, happened in quiet contemplation, not laboratory activity. The pattern reveals itself consistently. Breakthrough thinking requires protected stillness. Your competitors are too busy to think strategically. No, they're in meetings, responding to messages, attending conferences, networking constantly. They confuse activity with progress. Meanwhile, their actual strategic positioning, the thinking that should guide all that activity, gets 0 protected time. They're moving fast in directions they haven't properly evaluated. This creates your opening. While they're scattered across 100 urgent demands, you've created space where actual work happens. Your tower, in Montaigne's terms, your backshop where real liberty exists. This protected time isn't leisure or laziness. This represents your actual competitive advantage. Neuroscience confirms what Machiavelli and Montaigne knew intuitively. The default mode network in your brain, the neural systems active during rest, handles creativity, problem-solving, strategic thinking, and long-term planning. This network shuts down during task-focused activity. Translation: your best thinking happens when you're apparently doing nothing. The productivity cult inverted this completely. They worship constant task completion, endless optimization, 0 idle time. This approach maximizes output of simple tasks while destroying capacity for complex thought. Perfect for creating efficient servants. Terrible for developing strategic operators. Consider what happens in protected thinking time. You're not responding to immediate demands. You're asking deeper questions. Where is my industry heading? What move would change my entire position? What am I assuming that might be wrong? Which of my activities produce results and which merely consume time? These questions demand space. They cannot be answered between meetings or during your commute or while multitasking. The person who carves out this protected time sees patterns others miss. They recognize opportunities earlier. They avoid traps their competitors stumble into because those competitors were too busy executing to evaluate whether their execution served any meaningful purpose. This connects to the principle of essentialism, doing less but better. That distinction requires thinking time. You cannot identify what matters if you're always doing what seems urgent. The urgent drowns out the important unless you protect space where importance can be properly evaluated. Think about your last week strategically. How much time did you spend doing versus thinking about what to do? If the ratio tilts heavily toward doing, you're being outmaneuvered by anyone who maintains that balance. They're seeing 3 moves ahead, while you're too busy executing to look up and assess the board. Your employer doesn't want you having this thinking time. They want your hours, your energy, your output. Thinking time isn't visible or easily measured. They cannot optimize what they cannot track. From their perspective, you sitting quietly with a notebook looks identical to you wasting time. This perception protects your real work as long as you produce results. The sophisticated operator maintains two parallel realities. Publicly, they produce sufficient visible output to satisfy expectations. Privately, their protected thinking time guides all that visible activity toward strategic goals others cannot see. The public sees results. The private space determines which results to pursue and which to ignore. Montaigne's tower symbolizes this perfectly. He withdrew from public demands to create space for genuine work. 500 years later, that work remains influential. His contemporaries who stayed busy with immediately pressing concerns. History forgot them because immediate pressures always exist and never matter in the long term. Your thinking time becomes where you distinguish between their game and your goals. Their game demands constant response, perpetual availability, endless visible activity. Your goals might require completely different actions. Without protected space to evaluate this difference, you'll spend your life playing their game and wondering why you never win. The strategic mind creates inviolable boundaries around thinking time. No meetings, no messages, no interruptions. This isn't selfishness. This represents recognition that your capacity for strategic thought determines everything else. Protect the source of actual intelligence, and tactical execution becomes far more effective because you've evaluated which tactics serve your strategy. Dark philosophy recognizes that most systems of control depend on preventing exactly this kind of protected thinking. A person with time to think might realize they're being exploited. They might evaluate whether their current path actually serves them. They might build alternatives to the existing structure. Therefore, keeping people too busy to think becomes a control mechanism. Your protected stillness. You're doing nothing that actually means doing the only work that matters. This terrifies systems built on your busyness. They'll call it lazy. They'll question your commitment. Good. Their criticism confirms you've found the source of actual power. Let them stay busy. You're thinking 3 moves ahead of everyone, too occupied to see beyond tomorrow. You need a fortress. Montaigne built his, literally, a library tower on his family estate. You need yours psychologically. This protected space becomes where your real work happens, where strategy develops, where you belong to yourself rather than the system's demands. The tower isn't physical location. It's boundary, discipline, protected time that you defend with absolute clarity. Within this space, you think without interruption. You evaluate strategy without immediate pressure. You restore capacity instead of depleting it. This space remains yours, untouchable by others' urgencies and demands. What belongs in the tower? Everything they cannot see, measure, or optimize. Your strategic thinking time goes here. Your skill development that compounds over years rather than producing immediate results. This belongs in the tower. Your rest that actually regenerates rather than numbing exhaustion through entertainment consumption. Your planning that maps 3 years ahead instead of reacting to this quarter's pressures. What stays outside? Everything else. Performance theater stays outside. Busy work that proves nothing stays outside. Other people's emergencies that don't actually affect your position, outside. Proving yourself to critics who don't matter, outside. The tower maintains strict boundaries because its value comes from exclusion. If everything enters, nothing gets protected. Think about implementation practically. You need time blocks that are non-negotiable. Early morning before the world makes demands. Late evening after immediate pressures fade. Weekends where you disappear from communication entirely. The specific timing matters less than the absolute protection of that time. No exceptions, no emergencies, no justifications to yourself about why this one interruption is different. Your employer will pressure these boundaries. They'll claim projects need immediate attention. They'll suggest your unavailability harms the team. They're wrong, but more importantly, they're irrelevant. Your boundary isn't a negotiation. It's a statement about who controls your most valuable resource, your capacity for strategic thought. Friends and family will question these boundaries too. They'll interpret your protected time as rejection or selfishness. This reveals their assumption that you exist primarily for their benefit. Let them be uncomfortable. The people who genuinely support your advancement will respect boundaries that serve your strategic positioning. The Tower Principle connects directly to what makes certain principles from the 48 laws of power effective. When you're always available, always present, always responding, your attention loses value. Strategic absence, protected time that others cannot penetrate, increases the value of your engagement when you choose to offer it. Consider what changes when you establish this protected space. Suddenly, you're evaluating decisions from strategic position rather than reactive scrambling. That job opportunity, is it actually better? Or does it just seem urgent? That conflict with a colleague, does it matter strategically, or is it ego-driven noise? That new project, does it advance your 3-year plan? Or does it simply fill time? These evaluations require distance from immediate pressure. You cannot think clearly about whether you're on the right path while you're sprinting down that path. The tower gives you elevated perspective. From here, you see patterns invisible from ground level where everyone else operates. Montaigne wrote that we must reserve a backshop all our own, entirely free, in which to establish our real liberty. This wasn't philosophical abstraction. This was recognition that your actual freedom comes from maintaining space that others cannot touch. Every boundary you fail to maintain, every incursion you allow into your protected thinking time, these chip away at the only freedom that matters. Your tower becomes your actual workplace. Everything outside it, theater, necessary perhaps for maintaining position, but fundamentally performance for others' benefit. The real work, the thinking that determines outcomes, the strategy that positions you beyond everyone else's reach. This happens in protected space. The system will resist your boundaries. Systems built on extracting your capacity need you available, responsive, engaged with their demands. Your tower represents withdrawal from this extraction. They'll call it laziness because they measure value through visible busyness. Let them measure wrong. Your results, emerging from protected strategic thinking, will outperform their exhausted grinding every time. Build your tower, defend it absolutely. Let nothing and no one compromise these boundaries. Within this space, you belong to yourself. Outside it, you can perform whatever theater maintains your position. This division, protected interior work versus visible exterior performance, separates those who control their trajectory from those whose path gets determined by others' demands. The art of doing nothing becomes most powerful here. To outside observers, your protected time looks like absence, maybe laziness, certainly not real work. Perfect. Their misunderstanding protects your actual advantage, while they're measuring themselves against your visible output, your invisible input, your thinking time, your strategic development, your capacity restoration, remains beyond their comprehension. The hardest skill in strategy isn't action. Action comes easily because activity feels productive. The difficult mastery lies in recognizing when doing nothing serves you better than any move you could make. This discipline separates amateurs from strategists. Your ego demands constant action. Inactivity feels like weakness, like you're falling behind, like you're missing opportunities. This feeling lies to you. Sometimes the strongest position involves waiting while everyone else exhausts themselves, watching while competitors reveal their strategies, positioning while others flail through reactive motion. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. The fox doesn't chase every rabbit. It waits for the right moment, conserves energy, strikes when success becomes certain rather than constantly testing possibilities. The lion roars and charges and exhausts itself. The fox watches, learns, survives. When should you do nothing? First, when others want your reaction. The moment someone tries to provoke you into response, non-response becomes most powerful. They're trying to extract your energy, reveal your position, make you commit to a move before you're ready. Silence. Let them wonder. Let them waste their energy on provocation while you stay positioned exactly where strategy demands. Second, when situations continue developing. Most people react to incomplete information because inaction feels intolerable. They commit to positions before circumstances clarify. You recognize that premature action based on partial information loses more often than patient observation that waits for clarity. While they're making moves they'll need to reverse later, you're watching the board develop. Third, when your competitors are destroying themselves. The classic error, interrupting enemies while they're making mistakes. They're fighting each other, exhausting themselves, revealing their methods and weaknesses. Your move? Nothing. Let them eliminate each other. Preserve your resources. Watch them burn theirs. Position yourself to move decisively once they've depleted themselves. Fourth, when you lack leverage. Moving without leverage accomplishes nothing except signaling your intentions before you can execute effectively. Better to wait, build position, accumulate advantages. When you finally move from strength with overwhelming force. Premature action reveals your strategy without delivering results. Fifth, when costs exceed benefits. Most battles aren't worth fighting even if you could win them. Victory costs resources, creates enemies, depletes energy. Strategic mind asks, does winning this battle advance my actual goals, or does it simply satisfy my ego's demand for vindication? If the answer is ego, do nothing. This discipline tortures most people. Your anxiety screams that inaction equals death, that you must do something, that movement matters more than direction. These impulses lead directly to wasted energy and compromised positioning. The strategic operator recognizes these feelings as noise and maintains disciplined stillness until genuine opportunity emerges. Consider Machiavelli's advice about decisive action. He wrote that men ought either to be well treated or crushed. Do not inflict halfway injuries. Translation: if you're going to act, commit fully. If you cannot commit fully, don't act at all. Half measures waste resources while creating enemies. Full commitment succeeds or fails cleanly. Full restraint preserves everything for the moment, when full commitment makes sense. Most people cannot maintain this discipline. They take half actions that waste energy without achieving objectives. They commit partially, which means they neither preserve resources through restraint, nor achieve victory through commitment. They exist in liminal space of constant motion without decisive results. Your competitors exhaust themselves this way. They're always moving, always reacting, always doing something. This constant motion gives them the feeling of productivity without the reality of progress. Meanwhile, you've done nothing 90% of the time. The 10% when you actually move, you move with everything. This ratio, prolonged positioning punctuated by decisive action, produces results that look effortless to observers who didn't see the patient preparation. Think about timing practically. Market conditions shift, industry dynamics change, competitive landscapes evolve. Most players react immediately to every shift, constantly adjusting their position. This looks responsive. Actually, it's exhausting and ineffective. They're reacting to noise rather than signal, burning resources on adjustments that don't matter. You've taken different approach. You identified the 1 or 2 shifts that actually matter to your positioning. Everything else? Ignore it. Let others panic over irrelevant changes. You're watching for the specific developments that create your opening. When those emerge, you move decisively. Until then, nothing. This patience appears as laziness to those addicted to constant motion. They cannot distinguish between strategic stillness and paralysis. Their inability to see the difference becomes your advantage. While they're criticizing your apparent inaction, you're positioned exactly where you need to be for the moment that matters. The strategic advantage comes from recognizing that most action wastes more than it produces. The person who acts constantly appears busy and accomplishes little. The person who acts rarely but decisively appears lazy and accomplishes everything. This paradox confuses those measuring effort rather than results. Let them stay confused. Their misunderstanding of the art of doing nothing protects your positioning while they exhaust themselves on motion without purpose. The system sold you a definition of success designed to keep you serving. Money, status, recognition, visible achievement. These metrics matter to them because your pursuit of these things benefits their structures. Real victory looks completely different. Machiavelli wrote The Prince ostensibly about power, but read carefully, and you'll discover he's actually describing security. The prince doesn't seek power for its own sake. He seeks a position that cannot be easily destroyed, that gives him autonomy, that frees him from others' manipulation. Power serves this deeper goal: freedom from exploitation. Your victory follows the same pattern. You're building a position where others cannot easily manipulate, exploit, or control you. Money matters only insofar as it provides options. Status matters only if it creates useful leverage. Recognition means nothing unless it advances your actual goals. This reframing changes everything. Suddenly, you're not competing in their game anymore. They're chasing visible markers of success, exhausting themselves, climbing hierarchies that mean nothing. You're building genuine autonomy, the capacity to choose your path without requiring anyone's permission or approval. Montaigne achieved this completely. He wrote that the greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. 500 years later, that observation still changes lives because he identified what actually matters. Self-possession, the internal state where you belong to yourself rather than to others' expectations. Consider what this looks like practically. You've built your tower, protected time and space where you think strategically. You've mastered strategic visibility. They see what serves you, miss what would let them counter you. You've learned when not to act, preserving resources by refusing unnecessary battles. These practices combine into unshakable positioning. You're not checking others' opinions because you know what matters to you. You're not hustling for validation because you've built your own evaluation framework. You're not explaining yourself because explanation signals that you need their approval. You're building, positioning, advancing, invisibly to those addicted to visible metrics. What does this produce? Options. When you're not dependent on any particular employer, job, client, or opportunity, you've achieved real power. When you can walk away from situations that don't serve you, you've won. When others cannot manipulate you through approval or disapproval because you've built self-possession, you're free. This freedom terrifies systems built on your dependence. They need you needing them, needing their approval, their opportunities, their validation. The moment you stop needing what they're selling, their leverage disappears. The backlash comes predictably. They'll call you lazy. You're not a team player. You're not hungry enough. You don't want it badly enough. These accusations reveal exactly what's happening. You won't let them exploit you, and this refusal makes them uncomfortable. Their criticism confirms you're doing something right. Systems built on extraction need your cooperation with your own exploitation. The moment you withdraw that cooperation, they'll attempt to shame you back into compliance. Laziness accusations serve this function. They're trying to manipulate you through guilt into resuming behaviors that serve them at your expense. The strategic response: silence. Let them call you lazy. Their misunderstanding protects your positioning. While they're convinced you're not working hard enough, you're doing the only work that matters. Strategic thinking they lack capacity to recognize. Their criticism reveals their blindness, which serves you perfectly. Montaigne faced similar criticism when he retired at 38. People called him washed up, finished, irrelevant. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He went to his tower and wrote essays that changed Western thought. 500 years later, people read Montaigne. His critics, history forgot their names, along with their criticism. The ultimate paradox reveals itself here. The art of doing nothing means everything they think it doesn't mean. Your laziness represents their blind spot. While they're measuring activity and counting hours and optimizing schedules, you've recognized that visible motion often masks complete strategic emptiness. What you're actually doing when you appear to be doing nothing contains the entire secret. Strategic thinking looks like staring into space. Skill compounding looks like hobbies. Relationship building looks like socializing. Energy management looks like naps. Everything that actually produces lasting results appears completely unproductive to people who measure value through visible activity. This asymmetry in perception creates permanent advantage. Your competitors cannot copy what they cannot see. Systems cannot optimize extraction of processes they don't understand. Critics cannot undermine approaches they haven't observed. Your apparent idleness protects your actual work more effectively than any secrecy or security measure ever could. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, your positioning will separate dramatically from those who never built their tower. They'll wonder how you got so far ahead. The answer will remain invisible to them because they never protected the space where actual strategic work happens. They were too busy being busy to ever think about whether their busyness served any meaningful purpose. This represents the real victory. You've opted out of their exhaustion Olympics. You've refused to play the game where constant visible activity determines worth. You've built your fortress, sharpened your strategy, maintained your positioning, all invisibly to anyone measuring success through conventional metrics. The game is rigged for extraction. The system needs you busy, visible, constantly proving yourself. This keeps you serving while believing you're advancing. The real rigging, the one they don't advertise, actually favors completely different behaviors. Strategic patience, protected thinking time, invisible positioning, selective action, the appearance of doing nothing while actually doing everything that matters. Machiavelli saw this. Montaigne saw this. Now you see it. The art of doing nothing delivers victory because it opts you out of the extraction game entirely. You're building your tower while they build their audiences. You're sharpening your fox instincts while they roar like lions. You're belonging to yourself while they belong to the system. When you master this approach, you transcend the entire framework where winning and losing happened. You've moved to different conditions with different rules, playing for stakes they don't comprehend. This positioning makes you unbeatable because they don't understand enough to compete with you. 5 years from now, you'll look back at this moment as the pivot point, when you stopped playing their game and started playing yours. when you recognized that the art of doing nothing was actually the art of doing everything that mattered, while appearing to do nothing that counted by their metrics. Build your tower, move like a fox, belong to yourself. Let them call you lazy while you position beyond their reach. Their confusion protects your advantage. Now go win.